Good morning. Welcome to our 2025 Public Sector Symposium. Thank you for joining us today. This is my first event leading the public sector business for AWS. And after 25 years in the industry, I've never been more excited about the impact technology can have on the way that we live and the way that we can help you, our customers, achieve better outcomes. We are at a defining moment with the adoption of AI. It's a critical time for us all, and a time for government to get this technology right. As Australia's trusted cloud partner, AWS is committed to 3 key priorities in the public sector: supporting critical infrastructure, investing in Australia's future, and working with government to drive the growth and prosperity of communities, businesses, and individuals across Australia. I'm proud that Amazon has made the largest global technology investment in history into Australia. Now, what excites me most is the impact that this can have on healthcare advancements, the way that it will transform citizen experience, and make sure that our country is safe in an unstable geopolitical world. And everyone is talking sovereignty. We are sovereign by design. Our region builds means that your data remains onshore and on a cloud infrastructure that's certified to the Hosting Certification Framework standard. Now, thank you for joining us today and making time to be with us. At AWS, we focus on making our events as educational as possible to ensure that there's something for everyone to learn and engage and challenge their thinking. Now, we think long-term, and we want to help you, our customers, solve real-world problems together. Now, over the course of today, you'll see how these priorities come to life through our work and through our partnerships. We have sessions and demos to demonstrate the way in which AWS continues to work with government to improve the lives of Australians. Now, later in the keynote, you'll hear from Bettina McMahon, the CEO of Health Direct Australia, around how their significant transformation journey has enabled new models of care and continues to increase access and equity for patients, and the importance that sustainability plays in all of their decision-making. And we are delighted to welcome AWS VP for Global Government and National Security and Defence, David Appel, to Canberra. And he will be in conversation with Air Commodore Paul Pettigrew. And as always, a sincere thank you to our sponsors. Today would not be possible without their support. Now, Australia stands on a transformational moment in time. We must choose to lead the way in the AI revolution, partnering with government and technology to make sure that digital infrastructure and capabilities are taken advantage of right now. Now, I'm pleased to announce that today the Australian government has joined the Australian Whole of Government Agreement with AWS. This enhanced partnership gives Victorian government departments streamlined access to over 240 AWS cloud services, including AI, security, and quantum technologies, with 164 of these services now IRAP protected at a protected level. Now, this will accelerate digital transformation across the Victorian public sector, whilst also supporting the state's economic growth. Now, in July, we announced a new partnership with Macquarie University to accelerate their cloud-first strategy. They're shifting from VMware to a fully native AWS service, unlocking an expected 40% reduction in licensing costs. Now, this transformation supports 40,000 students and 3,000 staff, with about 75% of their workloads running on AWS. And by taking a product-based approach, Macquarie University can deliver faster, more secure, and modern services directly to faculty and staff. This is a prime example of how the education sector is transforming with AWS. The Australian Bureau of Statistics is modernising business stats using AWS. ABS statisticians are now working with new cloud-based tools for data processing. And later this year, the Bureau will deliver a monthly consumer price index, providing frequent economic insights for government and industry decision-making. Now, we cannot underestimate the importance of democratizing technology and AI as a driver for productivity. According to the Department of Industry and Science, AI is expected to create up to 200,000 AI-related jobs in Australia by 2030 and contribute up to $600 billion to GDP. The Tech Council of Australia expects AI to become one of our largest industries. However, new data from an AWS study found that 39% of businesses cite skills gaps as a barrier to AI adoption. So to address this critical need, I am pleased to announce our partnership with Code for Schools to launch AI Spring for Schools, a K-12 program developing AI literacy across Australia, which aims to reach 1 million K-12 students over the next 3 years. So this initiative will provide tailored learning for students, teachers, and carers. And this is a part of AWS Australia's AI initiative to bring AI as a national capability and solve these problems that we're seeing in Australia where we have a skills gap. And just 2 weeks ago, Amazon's Project Kuiper signed an agreement with the NBN Co to transform internet access across regional, rural, and remote Australia. Project Kuiper is Amazon's low Earth orbit satellite broadband network designed to provide reliable, affordable internet access to unserved and underserved communities worldwide. And this agreement represents a significant step forward in bridging the digital divide for Australians. The partnership with NBN Co will help small businesses reach global markets, provide rural students with the same educational resources as their city counterparts, and keep families connected during emergencies. And it will create opportunities for hundreds of thousands of people in rural and remote parts of the country. Last year, AWS launched Amazon Bedrock, Amazon Nova, our new generation of foundation models, and Amazon Q Business. Now, since launch, Amazon Q has become one of our fastest growing products across the public sector. So this release saw a surge in innovation across government and industries of all sizes. And I'm excited to announce the launch of Amazon Bedrock Agent Core, a comprehensive set of enterprise-grade services that will help developers quickly and securely deploy and operate agents at scale. Now, our investment in critical infrastructure continues to grow. Building on our previous $9.1 billion investment since 2012, we're committing an additional $20 billion over the next 4 years to enhance our cloud infrastructure in Australia. The country's largest publicly announced global technology investment is expected to contribute $35 billion to Australia's GDP by 2027, while creating approximately an additional 11,000 full-time jobs. Now, in parallel, we're making a landmark investment into the New Zealand region as we launch our new AWS region, investing $7.5 billion into New Zealand. This is forecast to generate an extra $10.5 billion to New Zealand's economy. And we anticipate this will happen over a period of around 15 years. Now, when it comes to critical infrastructure, maintaining the highest security standards isn't optional. It's the foundation of everything we do. When organisations like the Australian government partner with AWS for their top secret cloud, it's because security is in our DNA, from our CEO to every AWS employee. AWS is committed to driving growth and prosperity in both the public sector and the region. And I encourage you to experience and learn as much as you can from the program today. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Simon Elisha, Director and Chief Technologist, ANZ Worldwide Public Sector, to the stage.
Thank you, Louise, and g'day everyone. It's so great to have you all here with us today. Before we talk about cool technologies and inspiring outcomes, let's talk about mental models. Mental models are cognitive frameworks that help us understand the world, make decisions, and solve problems. They're essential because they enhance decision-making by providing structured ways to evaluate options. They simplify complexity by breaking down complex issues into manageable parts. And they facilitate learning by allowing us to adapt and integrate new information. You might remember models I shared at prior symposiums, including to be stubborn on the vision but flexible on the details, or to think big and act small, and the concept of desire paths. These continue to hold true and provide utility. And so I want to share another one with you that is super relevant to the times that we live in. It's easy to be overwhelmed with the new, the noise, and the challenges for your attention. But it's far better to focus on the things that won't change, because you can build with confidence upon those. So what are some things that won't change in our context? Change will always accelerate. Budgets will always be under pressure. Productivity will always need to increase. And security will always be non-negotiable. So let's explore the concept of accelerating change. Accelerating change refers to the increasing speed of technological and societal advancements over time, leading to rapid transformations across various sectors. Basically, things keep changing, but more importantly, they keep changing faster. You can see from this graph the speed at which technological change is adopted by society. It's not slowing down. Of course, generative AI is an exemplar of this. In 2023, I demonstrated using Gen AI to analyse government documents. In 2024, I demonstrated Gen AI agents designing an electronic vehicle. In 2025, Gen AI has the ability to be directed to create entire systems based off a specification. For example, I decided I wanted to be able to gather and analyse Hansard across Australia and New Zealand to better understand what's happening in government across jurisdictions. I had a strong view of what I wanted, but I didn't have the time to build it. But that was okay, because I was able to define a robust specification and have Gen AI build it in the background for me. As I attended meetings and answered emails and made decisions, the AI was building thousands of lines of code for me. My role was to guide, evaluate, and improve the system. Now let's consider the unchanging pressure on productivity. Productivity is proving to be a challenge across the Western world. The data is showing that we're either stagnating or going backwards. As the population ages, this issue will be exacerbated and highlights the need to change the way we operate and enable the public sector to be more productive over time. At the start of 2024, I made the statement that Gen AI will disrupt every knowledge-based value chain, something that's becoming evident to most folks now. This is because a lot of the knowledge of the work that we do can be compressed, automated, augmented, and improved by orders of magnitude. Meeting minutes and action items are a simple exemplar of a much deeper and more fundamental transformation. For example, the Australian Bureau of Statistics is launching a new AWS-based occupation auto-coding service. This cloud-based tool uses machine learning and large language models to automatically classify job descriptions from free text responses into standardised occupation codes. The tool can understand the various ways that people, human beings, describe their jobs, like electrician or Sparky, and convert these descriptions into standardised classification codes. The system has been extensively tested and can automatically classify about 95% of records, with only 5% needing manual review. This is an improvement over their previous on-premises system and will be particularly useful for the 2026 census. And the service will be available to other government departments that collect occupational data, helping to improve data quality and consistency across Australian government agencies. Another example is the George Institute, which operates Food Switch, a nutrition app that processes 70 million food image labels. Following a successful proof of concept, they're using Amazon Bedrock to embark on a phased implementation that fully automates the collection, processing and normalisation of their data. This digital transformation will enhance the ability to provide accurate, standardised nutrition information across 10 countries to consumers all across the world. A little further down the coast, academics and researchers at the University of New South Wales are using and creating AI-powered tools and products to help tackle urgent housing challenges. Through the Housing Analytics Lab, Professor Chris Petit and his team are pioneering the integration of LLMs and Amazon Bedrock with cloud computing capabilities to enable data-driven collaboration across sectors, delivering innovative solutions to addressing housing challenges. One of the fastest ways to augment knowledge work is to give staff access to all the data they need via a simple interface that does the integration for them. Amazon Q Business is a generative AI-powered assistant designed to transform workplace productivity by making information accessible and actionable. It provides unified insights across your organisation's documents, images, audio, video files and other data sources, while delivering quick and accurate answers with proper citations. Built with enterprise-grade security and privacy controls, it respects existing identities, roles and permissions, while allowing administrators to implement topic filters and keyword controls to ensure departmental guideline compliance. Users can interact with Amazon Q Business through its web interface, popular browsers, and integrated applications like Slack, Microsoft Outlook, Word, and Teams. It enables employees to accelerate content creation, automate complex workflows, take actions across applications, and extract key insights from enterprise data sources. But the real change will come with a change of business processes and the citizen experience using agentic AI. Beyond the buzzwords, this is the ability to break down a task into its components and have domain-specific automated agents enabled with suitable tools tackle those tasks at scale and speed. This has the power to convert tasks that took hundreds of hours to just minutes and makes analysing and refining service delivery far more rewarding than just moving around the deck chairs. But to do this requires a raft of undifferentiated heavy lifting around scale, security, tool selection, model safety and agent integration. And that's why we've just launched Amazon Bedrock Agent Core. It provides the tools and capabilities to make agents more effective and capable, purpose-built infrastructure to securely scale agents, and controls to operate trustworthy agents. Agent Core services can be used together or independently, giving developers the flexibility they need. To take the greatest advantage of these technological advancements, an understanding of your data is key. Having a really good handle on your data has always been a challenge for many organisations for many years. This is the work that was always classified as important but not urgent. Well, guess what? It just became urgent. It's not just understanding your data, but delivering data as products versus repositories to be jealously guarded or overly controlled. It's also critical to have a clear understanding of the provenance of data when applying that data to decision making. For example, in a recent public sector trial of a Gen AI chatbot, the stakeholders identified that it was hallucinating plausible but outdated answers. After diving deeper, they discovered it had dutifully ingested all the data from their intranet, which had years of outdated pages, links and data that was never cleaned up. The consequences of delaying good data stewardship had just become apparent. When considering a data strategy from a standing start, it's important not to be overwhelmed, not to boil the ocean, not to try and do everything at once. Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. Really what you're looking for is minimum viable data strategy with a minimum viable data classification to maximise the rate and speed in which you can get these data products out to your users and your citizens. The faster you can make data sets available, accessible and useful, the quicker you get benefit from that data, which of course drives that flywheel of success, indicating that you can release more information and make more data available for more services. We don't have to look far for an organisation with a great handle on its data. Health Direct Australia is our national virtual public health information service. They use AWS to securely store data, provide 24/7 telehealth, and develop AI-powered solutions. Here today to tell us more about their transformation journey is CEO Bettina McMahon.
My paper trail personally is quite messy. They end up on the dash of the car and you leave it lying around and then it's gone.
Growing up in my generation, we use so much technology every day, so it makes so much sense that all of my health records are on my phone, in my hand. All of my health information is available when I need it.
We all know that the costs of health are just increasing exponentially. We need to look at ways to provide that healthcare in a more efficient way, and digital health is the answer to that.
In pharmacy systems for dispensing, in clinical systems in aged care, hospital electronic records.
G'day Kendall, how are you getting on?
Hey, good, how are you?
Telehealth is providing the opportunity for specialists to give healthcare to rural and remote Australians. She feels that I'm part of her healthcare team.
For someone who have lost insulin scripts in the past, it is so much easier just to go into the chemist and I know it's on my phone. I can't lose it, it's there, and it makes my life so much easier.
Digital technology is now essential. It's at the heart and centre of future medicine.
Once upon a time, the most important tool for a doctor was the stethoscope, but today the smart device is what we need the most.
Australia has one of the best health systems in the world. Last year, global think tank the Commonwealth Fund said that Australia was the top performing health system in the world in terms of access to care, efficiency, equity and health outcomes. Universal health coverage, affordable medicines and access to some of the most advanced medical technology in the world has afforded Australians some of the highest life expectancies in the world. But this system that served us so well until now is just not going to meet our needs into the future. 50% of Australians have at least one chronic condition, and 1 in 5 are living with 2 or more chronic conditions. That's a 60% increase over the past 20 years and accounts for 91% of the non-fatal burden of disease in this country. The health spend in Australia is about 10% of GDP at the moment, and the AIHW has said last year that it's the fastest growing element of household spend. It grew 15% in the past 12 months alone. A Deloitte Access Economics report last year said that we will need to open a 375-bed hospital every single month for the next 15 years to meet the demand for hospital beds in 2036. And with the health sector producing twice the level of carbon emissions as the aviation industry, there is an urgent need for us to decarbonise the sector to meet Australia's emissions goals. Digital health and virtual care are a critical part of our response to these challenges. Now, hospitals, general practice and pharmacies, as you would have seen, are highly computerised. Australia is the only country in the world, apart from Estonia and a few Scandinavian outliers, that have a national interoperable electronic prescription system. And you've probably used this yourself. You can go to any prescriber in the country, receive an electronic prescription on your phone, and go to any pharmacy in the country and have that dispensed. That is unique. And cast your mind back 4 years ago to the 22nd of September 2021. That was the day when the highest number of Australians received a COVID vaccine, to 347,796 Australians to be precise. And those vaccines were almost all booked online. It is inconceivable to think that we could have managed that sort of national response without these digital systems operating at scale. Australia is also the only country outside some of those European countries that has a national shared health record in the My Health record, and we have the strongest privacy settings in the world. We have a healthcare identifier service operated by government, which has individual and unique identifiers for every individual, provider and healthcare organisation, so that when we're sharing data about a healthcare interaction, we have confidence that we're talking about the right person and the right person involved in the interaction. Last year, Health Direct provided 1.4 million video consultations through our platform, and we're forecasting a 65% growth this financial year to 2.3 million. And we know that when consumers use video conference rather than just a telephone call, it improves their satisfaction of the quality of the interaction, it improves their recall, and it improves their compliance in taking advice that they receive. Now, my organisation, Health Direct Australia, is playing an important part in shifting the Australian health sector from analogue to digital. We're funded by every state, territory and the federal government, and we operate digital services nationally. We're a virtual entry point into the healthcare system. When Australians don't know what to do, where to go, or have a question about their health, they come to us. And we managed 62 million interactions with Australians last year alone. We provide them confidence in managing their care and getting access to the services they need at the time they need them. We usually ask a few questions about their symptoms, underlying chronic conditions and risk factors, lifestyle factors, and then we assess their acuity or the urgency of care that they need, and then recommend and connect them with the care. So we either provide high-quality self-care advice, recommend they see their regular GP and support them to make a booking, or increasingly refer them into virtual care settings to take some of the load off the rest of the system, whether that's a GP telehealth appointment or a virtual emergency department. Now, Health Direct was one of the first public sector services that moved to the cloud. We started this journey in 2012 with AWS, and we are fully cloud-based now. There's no way we can be operating at this scale with any sort of on-prem services. And we implemented AI for the first time in our clinical decision support in 2022 with a probabilistic inference engine that improves the acuity, assessment, and connection to results. 3 years ago, we changed our operating model, and we worked with AWS on making sure this was fully cloud-based and secure. We now own and operate our platform, which involves a core distribution system, a clinical decision support system, CRM, and we map to our National Health Services Directory, which has over 120,000 services in it. Now, features of the cloud that are really important to us and which we've served really well with the AWS cloud is elasticity. So for our organisation, we deal with surges in demand. So 6 to 9 p.m. every night, weekends, we have a surge through the winter flu season, and particularly over the holiday break at Christmas. We can receive 2 to 3 times the volume. And during COVID, at certain times of the day, we were receiving 10 times the volume that we would otherwise be receiving. So it's very important we can scale, and it's elastic. We can secure that scale when we need it, and we can release that capacity when we don't. High levels of availability, data security and sovereignty are not negotiable for us. And of course, price was very important too, and we were able to secure competitive prices through the whole of government panel. There's a breakout session later today if you'd like to learn more about our security journey with AWS. We were able to achieve ROI in 26 months by reducing operating costs, improve consumer experience, and importantly, for every consumer we diverted from ED or 000, we could save 10 kilos of carbon emissions through a virtual consultation. But there's much more for us to do. This is Emily, and she's in production today at the Medical University of South Carolina for consumers to make bookings, to ask questions about their care plans, and to find out if their insurance cover will apply for services. And she's about to roll out in New York and in Austin. Now, we're thinking about how voice and digital channels that we offer can be integrated through AI, and we're working with AWS on how we can do this. We're thinking this could provide a more personalised service and do more of the heavy lifting that humans are having to do on our service today. Australia has a great foundation in digital services, and we are already seeing the benefits of this. We are now imagining how digital partners like Emily, through AI and working with partners like AWS, can stand on the shoulder of those digital platforms as a personal AI assistant for every Australian. If Australians can have this support available anytime in their language of choice and at the appropriate educational level, they'll be able to make much better decisions and live happier, healthier lives.
Thank you, Bettina. AWS is proud to be Health Direct Australia's technology partner, and what a great story they have to tell. I'm pretty sure all of us have used that service at one time or another. Moving fast has always been a survival factor, whether it's to get away from the threat or whether it's to be the threat. Moving quickly is critical in all elements of nature, and it's also important in business and the provision of government services. This also holds true in the digital world. It's important to create new services and new capabilities to keep up with citizen needs and demands. Often these needs are critical, emergent, and at scale. The pressure of technology change means we do not even have the option of standing still. We must move swiftly, but we must move safely. So what are the keys to reaching this kind of capability? Firstly, you need small teams that own what they build, or at least hyper-focused on the outcome. They need to be multi-skilled and have access to folks in the same team with any skills that they don't have. They need skills within their team rather than having to reach across organisational boundaries. It's vital to be able to deploy small, frequent changes versus big bang projects. You want to show value quickly and get very fast feedback. That fast feedback loop is critical with citizens and stakeholders. You need to hear if you're doing the right thing, or do you need to adjust? Do you need to optimise, or do you need to double down? All of this needs to be totally automated, with baked-in governance and security checks at every stage, catching issues as early in the cycle as possible. It's the provision of safe guardrails versus administrative barriers. Using AWS, you unlock this capability by providing unlimited development environments, the flexibility to rapidly test and validate change, the capability to completely automate system deployment and automate rollback in the event of issues. You're reducing risk, automating governance. You're allowing yourself to scale with success and minimise the cost of failure. You're maximising the amount of capability that you don't need to build because you're leveraging a robust set of services that deliver everything a modern digital organisation needs. And Gen AI makes this even more important as models are evolving at an ever-increasing rate, with new capabilities, larger context windows, etc. That's why using something like Amazon Bedrock allows you to replace your models on an ongoing basis. It also supports your testing process, your deployment process, all those elements around software deployment that need to be agile and dynamic. You need continuous integration and continuous deployment so that you can take advantage of the latest capabilities super fast. Let me share with you a few examples of things that have been developed on your behalf that you can use today. Data keeps growing, and we provide support for all major database engines and approaches. For example, we just announced Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL Compatible Edition now supports a maximum storage limit of 256 terabytes, doubling the previous limit of 128 terabytes. Fully managed, automated, backed up, and with failover built in. The simple storage service, S3, has continued to evolve to follow how you want to use your data. As an example, let's look at the rapid adoption of open table formats like Apache Iceberg. Apache Iceberg is an open source, high-performance table format for large analytical data sets in formats like Parquet, and there are exabytes of Parquet data in S3. To effectively work with large volumes of data, Iceberg uses metadata. Under the hood, Iceberg uses a hierarchy of metadata and manifests to manage data snapshots and table updates. But the challenges with Iceberg is it requires manual maintenance to run optimally. This overhead only increases as you scale. We, of course, saw an opportunity to remove this heavy lifting. So we added a new bucket type called Amazon S3 Tables to support Iceberg, enabling you to quickly manage and query data without the manual overhead. Then we created S3 Metadata to automatically generate system metadata such as object size, storage class, and encryption status. And now you can add custom tags to make finding the right data simple. And with this, it's now easier to create data products that can be used across your organisation. Most users don't need access to raw data. Instead, they get answers using curated data products that they can work with for specific use cases. Today, you can get as much compute as you need from AWS, with a wide variety of compute options like virtual servers, containers, and functions to support your workloads. Just take the Elastic Compute Cloud, or EC2. EC2 has over 850 instance types, enabling you to access the ideal compute for any workload. Even workloads that were once considered impossible to run in the cloud. Applications that demand extraordinary compute power, like scientific modelling, video transcoding and machine learning, or mission-critical enterprise workloads supporting large in-memory databases and complex analytics. With the rise of generative AI, accelerated computing instances used for training and inference have exploded in popularity. And AWS is by far the best place to run GPU workloads. We have a 14-year partnership with NVIDIA and continue to innovate together, adding new NVIDIA-based instances to power your workloads, such as the new P6 family of instances, which feature NVIDIA Blackwell GPUs, including the GB200 superchips. But we saw builders needed more flexibility in how and when they access GPU capacity. So we've created EC2 capacity blocks to provide instant, predictable access to high-demand GPUs. This is perfect for shorter-term training and fine-tuning workloads. For many customers, the consideration is buy versus build. But that's a false choice. The situation is really what I would call build-ish. The ability to buy certain components via SaaS or deployed in your cloud account to deliver the capabilities that are fundamental, common, and are well understood. And then building the extras, building the components that are unique and specific to the function of your specific organisation and the citizen services that you are providing. This combined approach also comes with a robust and modern view on economy, on security, and the speed of delivery. I highly recommend the use of Wardley mapping as a way to chart your path. Most organisations have well-established systems of record. Often these can be quite old, not really amenable to change. However, using these new capabilities like the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, it's possible to connect these into the fabric of the new digital assets you create, suddenly unlocking the capabilities of systems that was not possible before. We talked about budget constraints being one of those things that never change. But what if your maintenance and licensing dollars became your innovation dollars? Customers often make the assumption that moving to the cloud means an increase in OpEx. But what we've seen in recent cases, including this customer, is that moving to the cloud can often reduce their OpEx. By moving from perpetual and legacy license constructs like Oracle, SQL, and Windows to open source services such as Postgres, combined with an exit of their data center, helped this particular customer save 60% of their total OpEx cost, with a total TCO saving of 54% over 5 years. One way to stay on top of spend is to make sure you maximise your innovation funds by paying attention to the AWS Trusted Advisor checks that run in your environment 24/7. There are almost 50 different cost-related checks, just looking for areas of optimisation, be it over-provisioned Windows servers, databases that are underutilised, networking capabilities that could be optimised, things that are left idle, and other opportunities for proactive savings. It's these savings that you can immediately convert into innovation funding. Take what you save and reinvest it into the things you want to get done. Now, before we dive into security as the final constant, let's hear about transformation and technological advancement from two leaders in the national security and defence space. Here with us today is David Appel, AWS VP of Global Government, and Air Commodore Paul Pettigrew from the Australian Defence Force. David will lead the new global government organisation at AWS, which unifies our public sector expertise and resources worldwide. This consolidated structure enables AWS to deliver secure, innovative, and mission-critical solutions more efficiently to government customers across the world. Air Commodore Pettigrew is a former ADF fighter pilot who enjoyed a 2-decade career as a successful tech entrepreneur. In 2020, he rejoined Defence and has played a leading role on Australia's cybersecurity front lines. Please join me in welcoming David and Air Commodore Pettigrew to the stage for a fireside chat.
Okay, Air Commodore, thank you for joining us. I know your time is busy and you have to rush back to the office after this.
That's right. Thanks very much for having me, David.
We'll dive
everyone.
right in. So you have a really interesting career journey. We were talking a little bit about it backstage. You began your career as a fighter pilot, spent 2 decades in the technology, from a technology in the industry side, and you rejoined ADF in 2020. How has that journey from aviation to commercial tech and back in defense shaped your leadership views, but also how you view technology?
Great. Okay. So the first thing that comes to mind is, yes, the Hornet, the F-18 fighter I flew. It was called an electric jet. And we had, that was the very first platform where technology and the actual kinetic realm of warfighting fused. But no, if I was to put the whole journey together, it really sort of started in the mid-80s, learning how to code and understanding software. And back then, for those who are as old as me, that was like colouring in dots on a cardboard card and feeding it into a card reader and then debugging from there. So always involved in the technology side of things, the software side of things. I was tremendously beneficial or grateful for the opportunity to serve for 12 years flying. And then for family reasons, needed to leave the Defence Force and do 20 years in commercial industry. And the combination of those two intersected with an invitation and an opportunity to come back into full-time service and bring the aggregate of those experiences together, and that's what I've had the privilege to do for the last 5 years.
All right, great. Having run resilient autonomous data centers with AI capabilities in the commercial space, you bring firsthand knowledge. What potential do you see for the next generation of cloud and AI systems?
Enormous opportunity. It's not lost on me that we are the lucky country, and for those who can actually envisage, a new era of operational art, there is opportunity there for us. So in my current role, I'll just reflect on that a little bit now. So I sit here as the Joint Force Cyber Component Commander. I work to both Lieutenant General Susan Coyle, the Chief of Joint Capabilities and the Chief of Space and Cyber Domains, and also our Global Chief of Joint Operations, Admiral Justin Jones. And so from that, my role is the employment of cyber power. So for us, we define cyber power as an integrated element of national military power, and therefore from that, how that contributes to our national security. So from that, one of the key objectives that we're looking to do is how do we create asymmetric advantage and asymmetry, and that means those methods that an adversary has no effective counter to. So we're looking to drive new and exploit new technologies to create those opportunities, those methods that create advantage for us in service of that national mission that we have, whilst imposing cost on adversary malicious actors, freedom of action and manoeuvre through the cyber domain. I'll quickly just reflect on what we mean as the cyber domain and perhaps the history of that. For us, the cyber domain is a warfighting domain. It is comprised of all cyberspace and all electromagnetic spectrum at physical, logical and information layers, wherever that is manifest. So from that, as the employer of those capabilities and missions in support of activities through that domain, that's what my role is at the moment, is to, with my team and other parts of a much wider community, develop and present the art of the possible for our leadership and ultimately government to confirm that that is in accordance with our national objectives.
Okay, you just touched on it, but the cyberspace is not defined by hard boundaries. Yes. It affects public sector, industry, international partners, all have a shared responsibility. So can you talk a little bit about how you see collaboration working in that environment, both from a Australia and our New Zealand public sector organizations, and how do we engage meaningfully with the Defence Force and for our partners in the audience as well?
Absolutely. So core to what we call our central idea in our new doctrine and our new concepts for how we actually approach the employment and generation of cyber power, we really built that specifically on 4 tenets: people, process, technology, and partnerships. And all of those are symbiotic and they are absolutely pivotal. So when we say partnerships, I'll also reflect on a turn of phrase that we use more and more now, which is the integrated force. For us, the integrated force is not just people in the 3 Army, Navy, Air Force uniforms. It's our Australian public servants. It's also our industry partners and our international partners, both at a 5i level and other partners that we work through, in particularly in the region. So how we bring that team, that community together, is core to our central idea of how we generate and employ cyber power. Yes, David.
Okay. So traditional platforms typically last about 15 months or so, and I think you've cited that even cyber technologies may turn over every 18 months. I think in the world we're living in today with artificial intelligence, it might be down to weeks and days.
Yes. Yeah.
How is the Australian Defence Force adapting the acquisition, deployment, development of technologies to meet your needs?
I think if we're talking about that temporal shock, just the absolute speed of it, I often find it's helpful to talk in terms of history, because as humans we can understand this. So I'll tell a little story that my staff know I say quite often. It took us 100 years to understand what is air power. Literally 100 years ago, almost to the day, our Royal Australian Air Force and air forces of the world came out of army largely, but not just armies. Yeah? But it's taken us 100 years to really understand what is air power and how does that integrate. But from a cyber domain perspective, we've got less than 10 years to get that same level of maturity and sophistication, and that clock started ticking long ago. So from that, how do we actually understand the rapid change in technology? How do we exploit and seize those opportunities, as I talked about earlier, and do so in a way that our adversaries have no effective counter to, and that we can actually do it at a speed of operational relevance? These are wickedly difficult problems that we're working through. My role is to help articulate and advocate for the demand signal. What is the opportunity if we were able to employ these types of capabilities in methods that are suitable in support of our national defence mission, which is quite different from a business or corporate ICT mission. And as we sort of talked about from my introduction, I've had the privilege to span both of those worlds, so I feel I can add value in that conversation of how we bring the two together and ultimately contribute to national security from a military power perspective.
Okay. In 2024, the Joint Force Cyber Component was established to integrate cyber operations into Defence's combined power. Can you walk us through that evolution and what brings coherence across cyber planning, execution, and strategic communications?
So we're talking about a new construct in our organisational design and what we call command and control and authorities. So as the Joint Force Cyber Component Commander, as I've alluded to previously, I plan and employ on behalf of primarily Chief of Joint Operations, but also any other strategic tasks I am directed to perform. But it's not just inside cyberspace or just inside the cyber domain. What is critical with this component, I sit alongside peers from air, land, maritime, space, special operations, and also theatre logistics and health and national support. So from that particular perspective, we all sit around the one table, and as peers, we fuse and integrate at a coherent level the application of all domain power, which some people in the room might understand what that actually means. Yeah. So that's the real difference. We now actually, in the past, have had Army, Navy, and Air Force. We now actually have all 5 domains, all represented as we develop integrated campaigns and conduct operations across all domains.
Okay. You talked a little bit earlier about the cyberspace as being not defined by maps and like the other warfighting domains. How is the ADF conceptualizing operations cyber across the Joint Force? And what's the ambition behind the Australian Defence cyber concept you lead?
Got it. So in this particular one, again, I'll come back to history. If we talk about an air force or air power, everyone can almost immediately visualise aircraft flying or doing intercepts or dogfighting. If we talk about maritime power and navies, people can imagine submarines or warships at sea, and similar analogy applies to army, and even for space, people can imagine a satellite. But when we say cyber, what does that mean? So actually having a language that really allows us to talk about it, because we can't simply talk about in number of aircraft or ships, latitude, longitude, altitude, vector, and speed. You need another language to describe the domain, because only when we have a common language can we actually start to clarify what we mean by policy, what we clarify what we mean by authorities, what we clarify what we mean by operations and effects, and manoeuvre in and through the domain, because this domain is entirely human-made. Okay? The land domain equivalent would be to have a bulldozer and move Earth. But we can actually manoeuvre the domain in and of itself, and that imposes cost on adversaries as well. So for us, understanding what that means, as I said earlier, physical, logical and informational layers, we also talk about a second axis being blue, grey and red terrain, red being adversary owned or controlled, blue being completely owned and controlled by ourselves internally, and grey being shared with industry and other actors. And then the third axis we map to competition, crisis and conflict. So we can look at how we could perhaps be in competition at some physical layers with spectrum management or use of data centres or fibre optics, but we may be in crisis or conflict in the logical or informational layers, and all of those can happen concurrently. So the language of the domain has been one of the most important things that's allowing us to grip up and get after it.
The theme of collaboration has certainly come through in our discussion, and maybe let's talk a little bit about partnerships. You recently affirmed Australia's readiness to assist the Philippines in building interoperable cyber defense systems, underscoring a broader regional engagement in cyber capacity. How are such partnerships shaping the regional role in securing a free, open, resilient Indo-Pacific?
So, as again, I referred to our Global Chief of Joint Operations, Admiral Jones, before. He is charged to basically execute a campaign plan that is in support of our national strategic tasking. One task he has given me and our cyber component is to build a cyber domain mill-to-mill relationship with partners and friends in the region to build upon the great success that we have had in previous decades and generations, in fact, in Army, Navy and Air Force realms. So yes, that is an example where we are doing a defensive, collaborative cyber activity. The one that you're referring to was one of the first ones that we've executed with the Philippines in recent times, correct?
All right, let's wrap it up with this. You're talking to a room full of technology experts. What's your vision for the next 5 to 10 years of the Australian Defence Force from a cyber development perspective? And if you give everyone in this room one thing to support your mission, whether it's policy, R&D, collaboration, or workforce pipelines, what would be most impactful for this audience to know about?
For me, when I really think about this, I think of two things. One is we are a Western demographic, rule of law, norms-based society. We are up against actors who are not constrained by that same premise. So from that then follows down, if they are using AI, human-machine teaming, autonomous actions and activities through the domain, how do we respond and counter to that? So then I come back to our most precious two resources are twofold: humans and time available. So anything that we can do where we bring the fusion of technology, and there's been some wonderful AI topics covered already today, but where we can bring human-machine teaming to get a workforce multiplying effect, where one human who today might do certain things on systems, but tomorrow, with human-machine teaming, they could do 100-fold, 1,000-fold in 100th of the time. That absolute asymmetric advantage in a human-machine teamed workforce multiplying effect, I think that's, if we can crack that as a integrated community, I think that's something that will set us in good stead for at least 10, if not 20 years ahead.
Okay. Well, Air Commodore, I want to thank you, and thank you for your time and great discussion.
Thank you very much, David. Thanks, everyone.
What a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much, David and Wing Commander Pettigrew, for sharing all those insights with us. The final element of things that don't change is that security is non-negotiable. And it's the shared responsibility model that helps ensure the security of the cloud and security in the cloud. For our Australian customers, as part of the shared responsibility model, we continue to invest in having our services assessed at Protected. These cost no more for you to use and are available to all customers using our Sydney and Melbourne AWS regions. You can see here the breadth and depth of services, 164 of them that are assessed at Protected. This makes your own IRAP accreditation journey that much faster. As we heard in the fireside chat, the global security and risk landscape changes on a daily basis. How can you stay ahead of this? One way is to take advantage of our ability to detect attacks as they happen. AWS has built an internal service that is called MadPot. MadPot is a collection of EC2 instances with high interaction honeypots. These honeypots advertise different services while pretending to be vulnerable versions of those services, and the goal is to attract bad actors. At any given time, we have tens of thousands of MadPots running in our global network, and they're constantly shifting through our IP space. We can detect bad actors scanning for vulnerabilities and place their IPs in a drop table so that any packet they send never even sees your virtual private cloud. This protection is available in every connected region and provides protection for every AWS customer at no cost to you. It's reduced the number of vulnerabilities by 75%, preventing 2.4 trillion malicious scanner requests over the last 6 months alone. We also measure the list of mitigated IP addresses every 3 minutes. And on average, 12.5% of those IPs change within that 3-minute window. This means that the time value of threat intelligence is incredibly short. A daily or even hourly feed is too slow in today's world. And so we've integrated this telemetry into the AWS network firewall in the form of Active Threat Defense. Active Threat Defense comes as a rule group which protects against malicious network traffic by blocking communications with detected attack infrastructure. After the managed rule group is configured in your firewall policy, Network Firewall automatically blocks suspicious traffic to malicious IPs, domains, and URLs for indicators like command and control, malware staging hosts, sinkholes, out-of-band testing, and mining pools. It implements comprehensive filtering of both inbound and outbound traffic for various protocols, including TCP, UDP, DNS, HTTPS, HTTP, and it uses specific verified threat indicators to facilitate high accuracy and minimize false positives. And of course, security is paramount to any generative AI application. Amazon Bedrock Guardrails helps you block harmful or unwanted inputs and outputs for your generative AI applications. For example, if you build an application to process citizen data, you can use guardrails to help block certain outputs from the app, such as certain topics or words or harmful content, to help make responses align with the brand and values of your organizations. But now guardrails can do even more. One of the biggest things hindering Gen AI adoption in the public sector is hallucinations. At AWS, we found that automated reasoning could be used to drive down the uncertainty in AI-generated responses. Amazon Bedrock Guardrails automated reasoning checks is the first and only safeguard that helps prevent factual errors due to hallucinations. This innovative approach employs sound mathematical techniques to verify, correct, and logically explain generated information. ensuring that outputs align with known facts rather than fabricated or inconsistent data. Developers can create automated reasoning policies by uploading existing documents that define the right solution space, things like HR guidelines or operational manuals. This logic-based algorithmic verification process delivers provably truthful responses from generative AI models, enabling developers to enhance the reliability of their applications across various domains like HR, finance, legal, and compliance. This breakthrough capability represents a significant advancement in ensuring the accuracy and trustworthiness of generative AI outputs in all kinds of applications. So as we come to a close, remember that you can focus on the things that are not going to change. Change will always accelerate. Budgets will always be under pressure. Productivity will always need to increase. And security will always be not negotiable. And there's one more constant that wasn't on my list, but I hope is apparent. AWS is committed to your success. We're your technology partner and collaborator in the public sector. Soak up all the learning and networking that's available today and in the months ahead. We're on a transformational journey. Let's take it together. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the symposium.